On this day, exactly 40 years ago, the Edmund Fitzgerald set sail on what would be her final voyage from the Northern Railroad dock in Superior, Wisconsin.
The ship was en route to Detroit, but her entire crew would perish in what's become one of the most well-known shipwrecks of this century. Tonight, in part one of our series, I took a closer look at what went wrong that stormy night in 1975.
While these inland seas are inland, they have drowned many a midnight ship with all her shrieking crew.
It might be a Herman Melville quote, but it captures the spirit of what happened to the Edmund Fitzgerald on Lake Superior. On November 9, 1975, Captain Ernest McSorley and his crew had the Fitzgerald ready to go with more than 26,000 long tons of taconite pellets. Also making the trip across Superior that day was Captain Bernie Cooper of the Arthur M. Anderson. Both captains were also aware the weather conditions were deteriorating quickly.
And after that, they pretty much plowed right through that storm all night, having regular radio contact, monitoring the conditions, how they were both doing.
Around 3:30 in the afternoon on November 10th, the Fitzgerald radios the Anderson, reporting topside damage. The captain asked the Anderson to stay near until they both reached Whitefish Point, but the Fitzgerald would never make it. Around 7 that night, the Anderson was struck by two waves reported to be 35 feet high. Captain Cooper says he watched those waves head down the lake towards the Fitzgerald. There are many theories as to why the Edmund Fitzgerald actually went down on November 10th, 1975, but many believe it was conditions similar to the ones like you see here today with high winds and rogue waves that eventually brought the ship down. Cheryl Rosman's father was a sailor on the Fitzgerald and thinks that's exactly what happened.
I think that when the wave came over, it couldn't take it. You know, it was going like this, and when that wave hit, it just went straight down.
All the men were still at their stations. There was nobody that got off the ship. The captain told nobody to go on deck, so they were probably taken by surprise. Maybe not the captain. I think he knew his ship was mortally wounded, but the crew probably didn't know because many of them are entombed forever.
40 years later, the shipwreck remains on the floor of Superior, 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Point.
So what is it about the Edmund Fitzgerald that keeps us alive to it, keeps it awake and in focus for the Great Lakes community? It's the wonderful song by Canadian songwriter Gordon Lightfoot that has taken that ballad from simply about a ship and crew to really reminiscent of all ships and all crews, a ballad, if you will, in memory of all Great Lakes shipwrecks.
Thanks to that song, people across the country know what happened to the ship. But what they might not know is how that era's largest ship on the Great Lakes was taken down so quickly.
The waves on the Great Lakes happen in choppy fashion, and they come from all directions during a storm because the lakes are not as big as the oceans, and the waves will bounce against the lee shore and then bounce right back into the lake.
So why hasn't there been another wreck like the Fitzgerald's on Lake Superior?
You know, one thing we could say is weather reporting was really good then, but it's a lot better now. And you will see a lot of those ships out in Whitefish Bay, and they're literally just waiting a storm out.
But the Fitzgerald met its fate on the lake, and 4 decades later, Cheryl says she still has clear memories of the moment she heard what happened.
I heard about it on Channel 6 News. The 11 o'clock news, they said that there was a ship that was missing on Lake Superior, and I went to bed, praying that it wasn't my dad.
Cheryl and other family members of the Fitzgerald's lost crew would spend the next 2 decades looking for answers and a piece of that ship they felt could give them closure.